Perfect. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm
I
doing
was I
super
was
well.
just checking on Google Meets, and then I was like, hey, let me check it again. And then there was also a Zoom invite. So I was like, okay, I'll try that one.
Sorry about that.
All right.
So this is the official start to episode 21 of an Untold Narrative. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you tell everybody who we have in the room?
Elisa Payer. Thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
What's your background in? Where are you? Where are you from?
So I'm originally from Austria. I'm a designer. I have been focusing more on footwear design and apparel, but I graduated in industrial design.
Perfect. So are you currently in Austria?
Yeah.
And then, so let's start with because I know you. I'm really excited about this conversation, probably because we've never spoken. I know very little about you. And so some of my guests, like I know a little bit, which really helps drive the conversation. So we're going to see how this goes.
Okay.
Uh, but Instagram and the internet's a beautiful place. So that's
Yes.
kind of why you're here, because obviously your footwear design and your other design have kind of caught my eye and a lot of other people's eye. Let's start with kind of how you got into footwear and design in general, especially being from Austria. I imagine that there's probably, not the best industrial design schools. I think, majority of it's coming from the US these days. And then kind of how you got into design and then where you went to school.
Okay. So let's start first with how I got into design. So basically, when I grew up, I was always like in my own world. I was always like crafting stuff and building stuff, and then I was like, my dad had a lot of architecture magazines, and I was looking through them, and I was like, hey, cool, I want to be an architect. And then I started drawing my own floor plans, and it was like I had the biggest room, and everyone had the smallest room. So I was like really imagining how I would like to live. And then I went to high school for art and design, and there we had like in Austria, we have like high schools for different areas too, not just the basic one. We also have like art and design and engineering and sports and everything else. And I went for art and design, and there we had like a turnus. A turnus means like the first year you try different areas like ceramic, photography, film, product design, interior design, everything. And then product design was kind of like the most outstanding to me. And then I was like, I did high school product design, and like, in high school it's very simple. It's like the projects are not that deep. It's just like, you just create like for besides school, like for 9 or 10 hours in school. But that definitely helped me. And then I was like, I graduated high school 2015, and I was like, there is a really good school in my hometown. Um, and a few people know about it actually, but I didn't want to apply for it. I didn't want to, you have to have a portfolio and you have to do an exam and everything. And it just didn't feel right. And I was like, nah, I don't know. I don't want to do it. And I was like, I want to study abroad. I want to study English again because I was really bad in English in high school. I like, people don't believe in me now, but I'm like, I barely passed English.
No, your
Um,
English is great.
yeah, now, after 5 years. Yeah, and then,
So
um,
hold on,
uh,
we'll pause right there. So you're in high school, you're going through photography, you're doing architecture, you're doing industrial design. You gravitate towards industrial design. Were you always able to draw as a young age? Because that's obviously like the main key like component to design is drawing in some perspective.
yeah, I was always very creative. I always drew, but I never drew like the perfect cube, or never like in, how you learn it in school. But I always drew, and I always, I was always imagining um, my own areas, like my own life, because I grew up also, like I was born with an hearing loss, And I grew up the first few years of my childhood without hearing and without, being able to speak and communicate verbally. And I was like kind of learning when my mother told me to do something. I did that based on her body language, but I couldn't hear her. And it took a while. So I was like always kind of like in my own world. And then eventually, the doctors discovered it, and then I got my hearing aids, and then I had to learn how to speak by sign language and everything.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So can you speak sign language today?
Not anymore.
Because you don't practice it?
Yeah. So that was like also when I graduated high school, I was like, I want to learn sign language again because, when I got into the kindergarten, all I did was learning how to speak, and like they told me to not use it anymore because, if I don't use it, like if I always use it, I'm always going to be behind in languages and so on. Anyway, yeah, so I wanted to learn it again, it's, I grew up with it. But so I think, because of that, I, not being able to communicate as a child, you kind of really are in your own world, and I think that really, all I did was always crafting or drawing something, I never was reading, or I was like outside in the nature playing, I don't know, it was like, I don't know what I did, but yeah, so I think, yeah, that was really like why I was always creative.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough hurdle to get over, especially as a young child. And then but I think you can look back on it now and it's like, it's a positive thing because you're like, it created my own, creative bubble.
Yeah, exactly. I also, I laugh like right now when I sleep or, when I go swimming, or I always have to take out my hearing aids. And I really like the silence, it's like, you always have like so much going on, and I like, falling asleep and I don't hear anything,
Wow.
so it's like, it's back then I was like, why do I have it, but now I'm like, I love it.
Wow.
So,
What a
yeah.
change of perspective. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest difference? And we're gonna get into like your college and your education, like post high school. What do you think the biggest difference is like from the US and from Europe in regards to like,
Wow.
creative mentality and stuff? Because there's a lot in my perspective, and we had a guest on, Mikhail. He was from, I think he might have been from Austria as well. Um, and he talked about some of the differences between like American culture and European culture. I don't know if you've ever discovered that now that you've kind of been through both.
Yeah, I know people who went to school here in Austria, also Germany, and it's, in the American work really a lot, it's like, but it's like Austrian or like, European, they're like more chill, I feel like, it's okay to take a day off, it's, so kind of that mindset. But yeah, also sustainability, I feel like, in the Scandinavian countries is like, the most important thing. And in the US, it's like, it is important, but it's not like, we always, thought about it in school, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. Yeah, those two things definitely stand out, I think.
Yeah.
So why did you, obviously you're driven by the idea of learning English to a better degree. Is that kind of the decision that drove you to study in America, or did you study first in Europe?
No, I graduated in Austria and I had like all the possibilities, and I was like, I want to go abroad, but I still want to do design. I don't know what else to do. And then my dad was on vacation in San Francisco, like a California road trip the year before, and he saw the school I went to, Academy of Art University all over the city, and he researched about it. And he was like, yeah, Elisa, if you want to do it, just go to San Francisco. And I was like, well, sure, why not? So, yeah, and then I just, I just went to San Francisco, and I did design, and of course I learned English, and yeah, that was then 2015. Yeah, so
You
it was
graduated. You graduated college in 2015, or you started in 2015?
2015 I started,
Okay. And so, what
and
year
I
did you graduate?
graduated this year,
Last year? Oh, this
2020.
year. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Um, Obviously, it's a big thing, especially in this crazy time. And so, talk about your experience in San Francisco. Obviously, it's a major hub not only for design but tech and other things like that. Like, do you think like the transition from Europe to San Francisco as a bustling city that's very much work centric, how has that shaped kind of your creativity?
I think, being in San Francisco, the design community is huge. And there's so many industrial design companies, tech companies, there's so much there. And being there, I think I kind of, and also working in a brand, like in a consultancy firm, I kind of realized this is not the direction I want to go. In the textile, I more want to go into the fashion, the more abstract, the more, just not that technical, still innovation and everything. But I kind of missed, like in, for example, New York, it's, there's like so much, like also freedom and style and everything. And San Francisco is still, kind of like, it's just very tech,
Yeah.
Um,
But
but it,
what do you think inspired you to do more like fashion or more like footwear, the creative side of it? Was there like is that just like a passion of yours, or?
it's really interesting because I never really, my sister did high school in fashion, and when she did it, I never was like, I never was like, hey, what's that,
Hmm.
um, it's really interesting. And, as a child and growing up, I always, cared about what I'm wearing and stuff like that. But I never was like thinking about, I want to study fashion design. Now I think I just got more and more kind of led into that direction. People kind of put me into that direction. I kind of got pulled in that. So, and I kind of also missed the fact of, being able to express yourself. Sometimes in industrial design, I felt I wasn't able to express myself as who I am. I couldn't do the project exactly how I would love to do it. I had to follow the ID, traditional side, and everything. And it just wasn't attractive to me anymore. And I also, when I kind of like, realized that like about 2 years ago or 1 year ago that I'm like, this is the ID side. It's not that, it's not the only side I want to be on. So because like I was like, when you go on Instagram, you see like what advertisings or what images you like the most or you save or everything, and it was mostly about style, fashion. I was like, okay, this is weird. Why am I doing product design? Why I'm doing electronics when I'm actually not even looking at them?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just being aware of things you focus on. Yeah, so yeah.
That's really interesting. So did most of your projects during your education, like, were you always like not doing what the rubric wanted you to do?
For a while, I was following what the teacher wanted me to do, and I was doing really good in that, and I was like just following the structure. I think that was also really important, to follow it and to learn what is it about. And then, I was like, okay, I had to break out of it. And my thesis project, like my last year project, was really a project I wanted to do.
Right.
And of course, like, IND, and I did fashion, and I learned all the fashion programs and everything. And I was like, this is weird that you're doing, jackets in IND and everything. And of course I had to be like really strong and go like against it, what people tell me. But I was like, this is, I want to do this, and I know when I do this, this is going to get me the job I want. And yeah, so I think in my last year, I really broke out of the, I just did my own thing. I already proved everyone, hey, I can do industrial design. I got my jobs, I got internships there. But I was like, okay, this is not what I want and where I want to be. I have the feeling I need to do this. So then I just, broke out of this cube, basically.
The reason why I asked is because just before our call, like I went to your website and you can see this like list of like design awards that you've received. And so
yeah.
in order to do that, like you have to be doing something different than everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I asked the question of like, you have to be pushing the limits. If your resume is stating I won this design award in 2018, this one in 17, this one, and so I don't know if you can speak about those and like how you discovered the awards or how you won them, or because I think that's really interesting because obviously they're great opportunities, and there's industrial design today in 2020 is much different than industrial design in 2005, even 15 years ago. It's more populated. There's way more people doing it. So you obviously had to stand out. How did you find those things? How were you approached? It sounds like great opportunities.
Yeah, so when I got to San Francisco, my English was not good. And I was, again, kind of like living in my own bubble. And I was like, I remember the first time or the first day, it was like a welcome day in school. The semester didn't start yet, but the directors told us students, it's so important to have a portfolio. And I was like, I don't have a portfolio. So I went into my room for 3 days straight. I was working on a portfolio, and I was always, the teachers and the instructors and everyone was like talking about awards, you have to, this is the way how you get out, portfolio, everything. And I started already in my freshman year, taking my high school project, which are not that deep, kind of like in thinking. But I started taking them and then had like the simplest project and started just like, submitting them to the awards and everything. And for many, it was till the third year, I haven't gotten an award. So it was like in the third year I got an award, but I tried so many times before. And yeah, so it was definitely through the school, telling our students, you have, if you have an award, this is just, so much better for you, for your reputation, your work is getting to be seen, everything. And I just really, from the first day I was in school, I kind of started listening to the instructors too, and I was like, okay, let me, I just wanted to use every opportunity, I didn't want to be like, hey, nah, this is not worth it, or something like that.
What was the coolest award that you won, or that you hold closest to your heart?
So, I mean, boy, I think now it's, I think now it was really being nominated for the valedictorian candidate.
Oh, cool.
That was, yeah, because being in America and being a student there, I always was watching the American TV shows in high school. I was like, Gilmore Girls and everything. And I was like, I want to be also, I always imagined myself, wearing all the stuff, and getting my, graduation thing and whatever. And I was like, this was like really important for me somehow, to be um, you know, be recognized by the school for being a good student too, you know. So I think that was the most meaningful for me, you know, because I always dreamt about it. The other ones, the first very powerful one was because my director submitted my portfolio.
Oh,
And that was the IDSA Student Merit Award.
yep.
And that one was actually, I got that award as a sophomore student. Yeah,
Wow.
I got as a sophomore student, and you usually get them as a senior student.
Yeah,
And
that's a big deal.
yeah, and I didn't know about it, you know. Like, I never knew about this award. You know, I was like, you know, 1 year later, they ask us again, you know, if I want to submit, and I'm like, wait, is it only for seniors, or you know, I'm still a junior, you know?
Did
So
they fly you to New York?
no, it was like just the IDSA. They have like for every district, they had like the events, and then I was like IDSA West, so I was like in Portland. So that was just like,
That's so cool.
yeah, but it was like, you know, very unexpected. But from there on, you know, that was the first time I got internships, you know. So I think that was the most powerful
Yeah.
for the beginning, you know. So
So
yeah.
you just before that you talk about, you know, you always imagine like wearing the gown and the stuff like that. Did you guys have that opportunity with COVID and coronavirus? I was gonna
uh,
say, like, isn't
that,
that so disappointing?
it is. I mean, you know, I think it's not just for me, it's for every student, you know, everyone who's graduating this year, everyone who had like a huge, you know, like film premiere, so everything, you know, something what just, you know, shows your work of the last few years, you know, and you kind of get rewarded. I think for everyone, this was like, okay, now they're trying to do it, you know, virtually, but it's still, you know, it's
It's
still
not the
not the
same.
same thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. And I mean, I was, of course, super sad, you know, I never wanted to come back to Austria. And then COVID happened, and I was kind of like forced to come back here. And then it took me a long time to kind of adjust to it,
Yeah.
and to accept it. And, you know, being back here, I first thought I'm not able to get my dream job anymore. You know, I kind of lost my visa. I couldn't extend it. And then, you know, the government, you know, kind of like shuts down every visa application. And I'm
Oh,
like, how the heck am I gonna be able to come back? You know, I don't know why I fell in love like I really fell in love with United States, and it's weird because I love Austria and I love Europe too, you know, and the US is, you know, not the best country to live in, you know, but being in San Francisco, I just kind of discovered myself for who I am, you know, and I just learned so much about myself too, you know. So I was like, it just, and the people, you know, and I have my family and my friends over there too, you know, like, of course, Austria will always be, you know, my home, but it's not where I see myself and where I want to be and where I want to stay. And I hope, yeah, I don't know. I hope to come back soon.
what's the biggest thing that you learned about yourself when you were in the States?
Boy, the biggest thing I learned about myself.
I know it's a big question.
Yeah, it is. Um, yeah, I think to be really true to yourself, you know, um, because I had to break out of the box, out of a pattern so many times, you know. And, you know, you always get told off to follow something, or like you have to do it that way. And if you have a feeling no, or if you like you don't want to do it, or like this is not, you know, like for example, I didn't, you know, I kind of was led into industrial design, but I was kind of like, you know, I wasn't my heart wasn't completely in there, so like, really, who are you as a person and what do you want to bring to the world. And I think really being true to yourself and listening to yourself, because I think deep in you and yourself, exactly where you see yourself in the future, but you often get kind of like blocked in so many ways. And just being true to yourself, basically, I
Yeah,
think.
definitely. Yeah, I think that's really important. And you mentioned just before, like having to move back to Austria, that like you couldn't pursue your dream job or anything like that. Did you have, a company or a certain job in mind of what you wanted to do right after graduation?
So I always wanted to work at EC. So basically, that was like not that long ago when I was saying, hey, I want to work at EC. And um, when I got into footwear design and I looked more into fashion and everything, and footwear especially, I'm like, they do the coolest stuff and so on. And I'm like, it just,
They
I was,
definitely like merge the two worlds, right, into like one world.
yeah, exactly. So that was my dream job, and or I like working at Adidas, because they're like, Adidas is also a German brand. Um, and then being back home, I thought I'm not able to work in any of those companies, also because, it was shut down. And like I had some interviews and everything was, just, on hold, because of Corona. But I totally understood it too, like if I have a company, I would also put everything on hold and try everything to save my own employees, So, I was like, I wasn't, mad at them, or I was like, I understand it,
Yeah.
And
What
yeah, yeah,
I know that we'll get into like what you're doing today and in the future later, but like
yeah,
you did also do a lot of internships while you were stateside.
yeah.
Specifically, you did have the opportunity to work for other footwear companies. Can you
Mhm.
talk about like those experiences and kind of like what you learned and what you liked, what you didn't like?
Okay, so the first footwear internship was like a year ago at Under Armour with like, I got that internship by my school. All my internships I got through my school. Um, and of course, I had to ask for it and I had to ask for help. And I was like, hey, I want to get into footwear design. And they were like, yeah, you don't have a portfolio for photo design. I'm like, I don't care. I just want to meet someone, you know, who I can talk to, And then I got connected to Tom Ledecky, who was working at Nike Jordan and is now creative director also at Under Armour and so on. And he was also graduated from my school. And is German. And then we just talked and I just showed him my portfolio and I just asked, hey, I kind of want to get into photo design and I don't have any experience or never talked about, that much with photo designers, San Francisco is not a photo design city. So I was like, and then he's like, yeah, of course, let's talk. He looked through my portfolio. And at that time, I didn't have any photo design projects. And he was like, did you actually apply for an internship? And I was like, yeah, I did like a few months ago. And he's like, okay, let me check. And then we had like an official interview and he was like, Lisa, if you want it, you're totally welcome for an internship this summer. And I'm like, yes, of course, I'm going to
Cool.
do it. And then I went to Portland and
So you
yeah,
worked out of the Under Armour office in Portland.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
cool space. That's
it is.
the old YMCA building.
Yeah, exact. No, wait. Yeah, it's the entire glass front, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and then I had the internship there, and it was really awesome. Like, I never felt so comfortable in a team. I never felt, I'm doing what I'm passionate about. everyone was so kind, and I was in the innovation team, and I was working with like so cool people, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And I just, yeah, and Portland was like, I fell in love with Portland too, because Portland is the greenest city I have been for 4 years in the US. It's very from the agriculture, the nature, it's very similar to Austria, I haven't had a summer for like so many years like this, in when I was in Portland. And I was like, this is awesome. I really, I was so happy. And then yeah, so the internship was great. And then I went back to school for the semester, and then I was like, I need to find another job because also of money. But I was like, I wanna work somewhere else. And then Decker's Brands came up. They just kind of started Decker's Lab in San Francisco. They had like a store, and they asked, I was asking my directors again, hey, I'm looking for a job opportunity, but I know it has to be in San Francisco. It cannot be, because of my school and the international student staff and everything. I had to be in San Francisco. And I was like, is there anything, in the Bay Area or anything, what has footwear design? And then he got the email from Amanda that they're looking for someone, and then I applied for it, and then I got another internship, and that was more also retail based. It was not that much about like Under Armour, where I had a really big project, the entire internship, and I was totally involved with the team. It was more about consumer feedback. We also selling the shoes and collecting the feedback, designing new shoes, telling the feedback to the design team and our managers. And so it was like, also really important experience, to talk with the consumers directly. And yeah, so those were my two internships in photo design.
Yeah, well-rounded as well. I mean, Decker's group is big as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are super cool experiences. I think I remember back like a year ago or so when you got the Decker's internship. I was like, oh, cool. Like that's like something like people. I don't know. Everybody focuses on like the Nike, the Adidas, the major Under Armour, the major brands, and like there's a little Decker's group, but they're actually very big of a corporation.
That's true. I didn't know, I actually never heard about them
exactly.
Before, and I was like looking at them, I was like, oh, Coca, everything. I'm like, Jesus, they're like huge,
Yeah.
And so many footwear designers came from that actually to a next bigger, more well-known company. So yeah.
That's awesome. So let's fast forward a little bit to today. I think, one of the things that I remember that you did was, especially when you got back to Austria because of coronavirus, you took like a break from social media. And so I always, it depends on who the guest is, but I like to bring it up, social media as a whole topic because it's so powerful. It's obviously our everyday, and it's so, culture's so driven by it. Like how does it affect you? I mean, you mentioned early on of like saving photos and inspiration and things like that, because it's really like a living and breathing resume today of like, this is who you are. And you decided to take a break from it for a month or so. Like, how was that experience? What's your relationship with it today? And how does it impact you?
So, Instagram is the best tool, it's a living portfolio, as you said, like all my current jobs are because of Instagram,
Right.
And like being back home in Austria, it really took me long to accept it, and, I still had to finish school, everything was online, and I never had like a time to breathe. And, I just, always was on Instagram too somehow, to distract myself. And then, I just needed a break of everything, of social media, of people. When I moved back to Austria, it was like super fast too, it was like only in 2 days. I moved out, everything, and I was in 2 weeks kind of like isolation. I was in a different apartment, not to see my family, but in those 2 weeks I was like, actually it's about social media. Okay.
You can talk about whatever you want.
Okay. Let me just finish that story. So in those 2 weeks, I didn't want to talk to anyone either, and I still was on Instagram, but I wasn't, I didn't want, on the phone to talk to my friends or anyone. I was like, hey, this is way too much for me, And then when I graduated, I was, I got the job, but, I was just not, it was not, I couldn't entirely fully appreciate it, or that the fact that I just graduated, it didn't feel real. Nothing felt real, I couldn't, acknowledge it and appreciate it, So that was the reason why I took a break, because I was like, hey, if I can't be happy, now I'm not never gonna be it. But I was just, being back home, I just hated that, and then, I was like, okay, the only way for me to deal with it is, just to take a break, of everything.
Was it hard to do? I mean, because a month's a long time where you're, quote unquote, disconnected with the world. Because
yeah, it was 6 weeks or something like that. First I thought I'm just gonna do it like for a week or 3 weeks minimum, and then, I just deleted the app, because if I don't delete the app, it's a habit, I'm gonna be on it. So I deleted the app, and I was like, okay. It was weird because every moment I would be on Instagram, I was just like laying on my bed and just looking into the wall and looking somewhere and just not doing anything. So it really taught me, to take breaks, but not by Instagram, take breaks, by just doing nothing. And so that kind of like is still with me now, if I try to breathe, don't breathe through Instagram, breathe through the moment.
Yeah, I think that could be said about, any platform, right? I think that's such a key. I do it myself. I'm the worst. Like, it's like, yo, I'm going to take a break. And then you just stare at your phone and you get lost in this endless loop. And then 45 minutes goes by and you're like, what am I doing with my life? You're like, you're not really alive. You're just scrolling.
And sometimes I just, you have on the iPhone, you see like how many hours you spend on the phone.
That's
and
crazy.
Sometimes it was like way too much. I was like, Jesus, this is no, I can't do that anymore. And then
So do you find yourself being much better today because of like, the break, and like now you're on it way less and things like that?
I'm more peaceful, definitely. Like, I have accepted everything. I'm not, if I take a break, I'm going outside into the nature again. Like, we have a garden at home, and I just took my coffee. I wasn't having my phone with me. I just went outside into the garden barefoot, putting my feet on the grass or my hands, and just being in a moment. But so like time passed by. Like it was like already 3 weeks, and my friends were like, hey, when are you finally gonna get Instagram again? I'm like, nah, I'm just not ready for it.
I'm good.
Yeah. I'm like actually doing better since a while, and then,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was like really helping me in everything, like, and also I started writing. So like instead of Instagram, I started to journal. And I was journaling a lot when I was in San Francisco, but then I stopped because of school. I didn't have time. And then in the summer, I was like, there were days where I was like writing 10 pages a day, you know, just
Wow.
about how I feel, you know. I was like writing, you know. And probably, you know, just like my thoughts, you know, just letting or getting out everything. So that was like, you know, also a good way of not using Instagram anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, writing is such a helpful tool that a lot of people I think need to do more. You know, I try to start my day with writing, you know, not the
Yeah,
phone. I just write a couple things, like couple goals. That's it. Like, it doesn't have to be an essay.
no, it's just, you know, hey, you know, whatever, you don't have to think about it, you know, you just write. And it's also really nice because you kind of get, when you think, you sometimes think, but you're not aware of what you think, kind of, you know. And then when you write, you're actually being really aware of your thoughts, you know, hey, why have I been wasting this thought for so many hours just on this thing, you know? When you can use, you know, I just learned to, you know, kind of like be more aware of what I think, you know. Yeah, so then I still didn't want to be back on Instagram. I didn't want to download it. And I was like starting to meet new people in my hometown who are also creatives. And I'm like, hey, you know, we always wanted to connect. I'm like, hey, I'm not using Instagram anymore.
It's tough when you don't have, like, that's the main tool of, like, and
Yeah,
today, I mean, I think you know this as well, is like the majority of like our, let's call it the creative world, is like networking and relationships, and a lot of the most access we have to those people in our networks is through social media, whether
yeah,
it's, you know, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, that's the easiest way to build your network.
it is. It really is. Like, it's just crazy.
So do you think
Like,
that's kind of what like guided you to go back to it, is because of all these resources you were, you know, interacting with?
yeah, too. And you know, I started, you know, like a lot of connections or people I know, I don't have the phone numbers. And I was like, I and you know, 6 weeks not, or 5 weeks not being on, or 4 weeks not on Instagram, I was like, hey, I don't know if I got new messages or people have tried to reach out to me or anything. And I was like, then I was like checking on my computer, you know, you can check on your computer too, if I got any messages. And then I just, you know, and I also was planning for my trip, like in August. I took an entire month of backpacking Europe, and I was like starting to plan for this trip, and I wanted to stay at people's places, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't have the phone numbers, I need to reach out to them. um, yeah, so that was, you know, for sure the reason for being back, you know. And yeah.
That's awesome. So let's talk about kind of today. Obviously, it sounds like you did a backpacking thing recently for yourself, which is cool. But like, let's talk about, you know, work. On your website, it says that you're a consultant for Rude. I don't know if that's still true or not. And then I don't know if you want to talk about, you know, what your goals are for the next, even rest of the year. Like, you know, what are you doing, and how are you applying, you know, yourself creatively and supporting yourself?
So yes, I'm still contracting with Wood. It's more project based. Right now I don't have any projects. And they, like, we agreed, you know, if they have projects, they're gonna, you know, let me know, and then I work up with them on projects. But I also got another contract, which, you know, I'm not ready yet to share, as I already told you before, because you know, as this is kind of like quite similar for, you know, the fact that I graduated, you know, or when this time, the fact that I was back home, I needed time to, you know, hey, wow, appreciate it, you know, acknowledge it, and take this time just for you. And this is again for me. So I kind of like have been less on Instagram again, you know, because of that too, because I'm like, hey, this is crazy, you know. And I'm literally now working my dream job, and I'm like, this is, you know, the fact that it was still happening, even though there is Corona, and even though I'm back home. I was like, if you really want something and you work your ass off for that, but also you're in the right mindset,
Yep.
it's possible. Not like nothing is impossible, and not even Corona can, stop, or the
That's
fact that I'm back home,
that's so
So
that's so exciting. Yeah, no, and totally. Well, we're gonna leave names out of this, but it is really exciting. I'm super excited that you found work and stuff like that. Obviously, it's very difficult. A lot of people have reached out even recently. Recent graduates or even people who have been laid off and stuff. And like now, I've been finally seeing like other brands and companies starting to rehire, which is really nice.
yeah,
It means that we're kind of hopefully on the tail end of this.
yeah,
And we can all get back to some sort of good cycle of employment and getting people interactive and things like that. But I think that's a really positive thing that you found work and are able to pursue it. One of the things that I definitely wanted to go talk about before we wrap up the conversation, and I'm sure this has helped you find employment, is like your skills in 3D and more so in like virtual design, I'll call it, because it's still something relatively new to the design community. Not a lot of people really do it on a commercial level, like even on the day-to-day process. Like it's very still unique and it's not been like mass utilized. And if you go to your website, which we'll get into, and like even your thesis project, which is super cool and everybody should check out. You did like this YouTube video on it and it's like almost 2 minutes long, and like you showcase the process, and I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. But like talk about like why you gravitated towards designing in like this different language than the traditional way.
I think definitely because I took a class in that. So my instructor, who is also my director, he is teaching that class, and it's like it's called Digital Imaging 2, where you learn more about renderings, videos, everything. And we just in school started new using the headset like Oculus, virtual reality, Gravity Sketch. It was pretty new, and he tried to take this, this feature into the into school basically, and that that was like why I kind of took it with me for all the projects then. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's so interesting because it's so new still, and you've applied it really in a beautiful way to your thesis project and like making it come to life. I think that's like the major asset of it looks like it's 3D, it's real, like it's there.
Yeah.
It's not like pen and paper 2D. It's like it's coming to life. It's like bringing your idea like really in your face, which is really nice.
This, that's what I really love about Gravity Sketch and virtual reality, because you're like in this again, you're again in your own world, and it can be any world, It's like I always have it in the like in a black world, so it's only the colorful stuff you build in front of you, and you're again in your own world, and you can scale it and put like you can move it around and turn it around, and you have the control of it, and you're able to when you build stuff in 3D like in Fusion 360 or Rhino or like SolidWorks, all the programs, you still it's very, everything has to be perfect, millimeter by millimeter working, and then this feature is not working. And with Gravity Sketch, you're like, hey, it's working, I have this idea, you put it down, you create it, and it doesn't even take that long, and it's really also when I started ideating in Gravity Sketch, it's opening doors, because you know, in 2D, when you sketch everything, you still sketch very abstract, but then when you want to make or bring it alive, this idea, you often kind of like start taking out some features or some elements, because it's not possible to build in SolidWorks or physically somewhere. And in Gravity Sketch, you know, like nothing is impossible. So it's really, it's a very powerful tool. Like I love it. It's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it definitely, I think, separates you as a designer and a creative, because if you know that before everybody else, like I think it just adds more value. Um, one of the questions that I also wanted to ask is, and what I like about, you know, hosting these conversations is I like bringing people on who are before they board the rocket ship, and like I think your career is going to be incredible. So I like talking to people before they get on that, because then I'll never be able to talk to you later.
Yeah.
Do you think about like big picture, like goals and like things like that? Like, what do you want to do in 5 years? Like, do you have a vision for yourself for like the future?
Yes, so definitely. I think it's so important to dream big, you know, not, you know, just dream big is so important, you know, like everything is possible, you know. Um, I want to get the next level up in where I'm working now. You know, I want to be fully hired, and I want to, you know, be in a more like head design position or anything in that where I'm working at now. But I also see myself like big picture is having my own brand eventually, you know, and then I'm really dying for collaborating with a lot of creatives from different backgrounds, you know, with artists, with only fashion designers, you know. I really want, you know, I just want to create the with people who have a similar mindset, you know, who really try to change something, really try to impact something. Um, yeah, so big picture. Yeah, I think that's the big picture. You know, I have my goals, you know, I go over it every morning, you know, when I wake up, because I
Yeah.
also have them, yeah, I have them written down on and put it on the mirror in the bathroom, so I see it every day, you know. Because literally, like, it's, of course it's hard work, but it's also, you know, thinking that it's possible, you know, because dreaming big can be very intimidating, you know, especially when people tell you, hey, this is impossible, you're never gonna achieve it, you know. And you're like, hey, no, you know, why not? You know, everyone can achieve whatever they want, and everyone can be whoever they want to be. And no shouldn't be on your list, you know. So, and I think also it's like manifesting, you know, like, hey, if you see it, you kind of like, you have to breathe it, you know, you have to think of it all the time, you have to breathe it all the time. So yeah, and to remind myself, hey, I'm, you know, in the bathroom washing my hands, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be whenever I'm gonna be there, you know. But yeah, so I think that's a big picture.
That alone, for you to have that mentality and to remind yourself every day is so important. I hope people who listen to this start doing it if they're not doing it already, because it is important. If you remind yourself every day of why you're doing something, you know, it's much easier to do it, because otherwise you're going to get exhausted. You're just going to be like, I'm done with this. But if you see it every single day, no, I got to keep going, I got to keep doing this, like this is the goal. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'm really excited for the future to see what you do. Thank you for sharing where you're going, because I'm excited. I think that's going to be so fun, and people like so that will kind of, sorry, there's like an ambulance or something going by, but we'll wrap it up there because we have been talking for an hour, and I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and where can people find you? You know, what's your website? You know, your social media and stuff like that. We'll make sure that people have the links to follow your journey and see your work.
So I think Instagram is the best tool to reach out or like see my work, because on the website I have it too, but not everything. On the website it's more portfolio projects by projects, and on Instagram it's like I'm on Instagram and sharing even just a sketch or like where I'm at right now. So I think Instagram is the best, you know, and it's just like by my name, Elisa Payer, and also the website, elisapayer.com. And yeah, I think that's the best way.
For sure. And definitely check out your, like, I like your projects, but like your thesis one really stood out. You know, I think it's so cool because you capture so many different like aspects of design from the sketch through the 3D, like, and creating a video for it is awesome.
I think, you know, for everyone who's still in school or anything, you know, your thesis project should be the project for the brand or for whatever you want to create, because the thesis project got me all my jobs after graduation. And if you not, like a thesis project, like my thesis project, I really was passionate about it, you know, and I didn't follow anyone else. I was like, gonna do my own thing. So yeah, thesis project, you know, for everyone who's still in school, do what you want to do, you know, what you love, and make it in a new way, and think about, you know, how can you how can you make it pop, you know, how can you make it different? Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for joining us on an Untold Narrative, episode 21. It was awesome to talk to you and meet for the first time, I guess.
Thank you too. Like, I'm so happy that, you know, we finally got to talk to each other, you know, and this is great. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great weekend. All right.
You too.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you.